We are continuing our coverage about a horrific find in Black Forest. More than a dozen horses found dead in a barn, another 8 horses still alive, but barely.
Yeah, that grisly discovery happened around 3 o'clock this afternoon at a home in Black Forest in the 5400 block of Burgess Road. KRDO News Channel 13's Jonathan Petramala is there live. And Jonathan, we understand that barn is now a crime scene.
Yeah, it's changed a lot in the last hour or so. An hour ago, we were right next to the horse pens, showing you some of the living horses still showing ribs, etc. But in that last hour or so, they put up the crime scene tape, pushed us back. A detective just arrived. Another couple of deputies have arrived as well. What they are waiting on is a search warrant. Now, what happened was this afternoon, one of the renters on a neighboring house up to this barn said the dog got loose and the dog got inside the barn. I'm going to bring Diana in right now because Diana was the one that first discovered the bodies of these horses inside this barn. Diana, can you describe to us what you first saw that looked so suspicious to you and that you went and investigated?
Yes, my mother-in-law had, she was training her little German Shepherd, and he had ran into the other side of the barn. Therefore, I went to go get him, and when I was inside the barn trying to get him, I saw a femur from one of the horses, and it was underneath a tarp, like half under, half on, you know, and I lifted up the tarp, and there was a full skeleton of a horse there that had probably been there, I'd say, within the past year. And then I started looking around, and there were over a dozen tarps wherever the horse had laid down and died. They just threw a tarp over it, let it decompose, while 10 other horses are walking around in the contaminated mess. So.
Yeah, you live in a house, if you can see real quick, just right next to where this barn is. You guys don't really come down here into these barns before, so you had no idea.
No, this was the first time. We stay on this side of the barn that's totally separate. It has a separate wall. So that was the first time that we had actually went in there, and that's when I called you guys and I called the sheriff's department. So you guys were the first ones to arrive, then the sheriff's department about 2 hours later.
Yeah, and we're showing some video, I believe, of what we shot inside of some of these bodies underneath the tarps. And when we were in there with you, you just went around tarp after tarp and just pulled them open and just discovered body after body.
Right, right. From what I've heard, she's had 30-some. It's a male and a female married couple that rent half the barn, and they had 30-some horses at one point, and, well, we found some of them, and there's 4 foot of manure that has never been taken out of there. The hooves and the teeth and just the ribs of these horses, they're in deplorable condition, and they need help quick. They need rescued like quick. And we're still waiting on the decision of the sheriff's department on what they're going to do, but they have not been fed or watered today, and they won't let me go back in there to give them food or water.
Yeah, that's one of the things we've been talking about, is just how deplorable the conditions are for the horses that are living, because they're walking around essentially bodies of their compadres that just fell down where they died, and they were left there. They
were left there, and they decomposed there. There was just a lot of flies, and we couldn't figure out where they were coming from. Well, apparently we found out. So.
Ever seen anything close? Did you ever even expect that when you saw that bone? I
had a gut feeling something was wrong because they were so private about not letting anyone in there, and I'd see 1 or 2 horses out of the 10 come out, and their bones are showing, just their ribs they're just in deplorable condition. And when I went in there to get the dog, I never thought that I would actually see dead bodies laying everywhere, just throwing a tarp over them and let them decompose along with the live animals. So.
And after tarp, it seemed you got angrier and angrier as you uncovered what you saw.
Yes, I did. And I will make sure justice is going to be served. Trust me. I will follow this story. Excuse me. I will follow this story until they're in jail. I want something done. Something has got to be done, so.
A little impatience now. We're waiting on the El Paso County Sheriff's Office to get a search warrant to be able to go inside and see what we've already seen and what we've shown you live on television the last hour and a half or so. They don't want to go in, of course, because if they do, then if they see anything in there, that's evidence that could be inadmissible in court. So they have to follow the process of getting that search warrant, and then, of course, from there, the investigation will continue from there. Live for now in Black Forest, Jonathan Petramala, KRDO News Channel 13.
And Jonathan, before you leave, it truly is shocking video to see, even more shocking for you all who have seen it in person. Jonathan, you were raised on a farm here in southern Colorado. You know what it takes to take care of livestock. What do you see of any food, water there, if any?
Yeah, growing up on a ranch, we had sheep, we had horses. My parents were horse people. They're well known in the region. And, if you have the commitment to have livestock, that's a 365-day-a-year job that you have to commit to take care of these animals, because they can't take care of themselves, especially if they're locked inside of a barn or inside of a horse pen where they have no access to running water or food. I did see inside a couple of bales of grass hay, not nearly enough to feed the number of horses that are inside. I saw 8, maybe 10 horses in there. That's not enough to feed them for too terribly long. The water that we did see was stale, rotten, old. It's just like us. We wouldn't want to drink that water that's been sitting there rotten, maybe having some algae growing inside of it. Then you have, of course, all the flies and the maggots because of the dead bodies that were just lying around. The condition of the horses that are living itself, the horses on the outside, there are 4 horses on the outside pen, and you can see their ribs. Their hooves aren't in terrible condition. The horses on the inside, though, where it's essentially a horse graveyard, their conditions are not quite as good. They don't have the ribs showing, but their hooves really concern me, as well as the conditions of their mouth. That's something that could end up being troublesome to their continued life if they are indeed rescued from here. Back to you guys.
Yeah, clearly an injustice there. Thanks, Jonathan.